You know the story, patriot and Tory, fighting for the freedom and a waving old glory, and trying to build a nation up the hard way. And thanks to Lin Miranda, you can see it all on Broadway. Hamilton and Jefferson coming to blows over banks, wars, and taxes. They were deep in the throes. But tell me, do you know the story of the battle renewed and America's second great feud? Let me set the stage, read it on the front page. A treaty out of Ghent, and it says we're in the new age. Call it one of hope and new ceilings. It was an era so fine that they call it good feelings. Madison, Monroe were elected automatic, cause all the big Republicans were also Democratic. But honeymoons, they never last forever, and in 24 the ties began to sever. 1824, 4 candidates are knocking on the White House door. Split the vote along the map lines, and by the night time, no winner on the headlines. Through the trouble and confusion, the Constitution says the House must decide. Jackson won votes far and wide, but Adams had friends on the inside. Henry Clay, Quincy Adams won the House vote. He was on a roll, so the story goes. But Jackson was mad, it seemed that he had lost a chance of power that was in the bag. Henry Clay became the state sec, but Jackson wouldn't go without a truth check. I hate to interrupt, the bargain was corrupt, and now in 28 this bomb will erupt. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction, you better saddle up. Saddle up. Second party system, you couldn't miss some, you better saddle up. Saddle up. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction, you better saddle up. Saddle up. Got a card to play when it comes to Henry Clay. The American common man has a vote now in his hands. New leader of the Democrats, take a fight to all the bureaucrats. These anti-elite will never retreat. In 1828 his comeback's complete. So Andy took the White House, promised to facilitate a change now. Corruption would fall, the government small. Back to the age of Thomas Jefferson et al. Clay, he wasn't done yet, decided he would have himself some fun, yeah. I see where the house is, I know where the south is, so let's see Andy Jackson put his money where his mouth is. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction, you better saddle up. Saddle up. Second party system, you couldn't miss some, you better saddle up. Saddle up. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction, you better saddle up. Saddle up. With precision, two competing economic visions, and incompatibility increasing their divisions. See, Jackson was the voice for the South and the West. He was a self-made slave, holding slightly obsessed, slightly distressed, a racist with the hole in his chest. But he believed that the government was bloated and pressed far beyond the legal limits of the law of the land, thanks to bureaucrats and bankers with their heads in the sand. But on the other side, a statesman from the state of Kentucky, a compromising master who was more than just lucky. He was the founder of the Whigs with progressive ideals, like state-funded infrastructure, tariffs, and trade deals. See, Clay was the quintessential Washington type. He was the very thing that Andy Jackson promised to fight. So in the night, you could feel a tension building with hype, like a bomb or a powder keg about to ignite. It was quite a sight, witnessing a heavyweight fight. Both men demanded victory and sought it despite all the troubles and the roadblocks the other could flank. And the biggest of them all was the National Bank. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction, you better saddle up. Saddle up. Second party system, you couldn't miss some, you better saddle up. Saddle up. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction, you better saddle up. Saddle up. Now the bank was the center of historical tension, and in 1832 it grabbed the nation's attention when Henry Clay made a play with his cronies in Congress to corner old Hickory with the bank, their accomplice. The Whigs, they passed a bill that was meant to extend the bank into the future, cause Henry thought it would send a clear message to the president. The people have spoken, but Jackson still believed that the bank, it was broken. So with the stroke of his pen, he signed a veto, and then when it came the time to vote for Clay and Jackson again, Andy Jackson won the day on the back back of a common man. And Clay and the Whigs, they were left with an empty hand. The banquet was dead, Clay was beaten in sets. When Jackson gathered up the state banks and made them his pets. And the damage done to Clay left him broken and crying. He never was the president despite 4 times trying. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction. You better saddle up, saddle up. Second party system, you couldn't miss some. You better saddle up, saddle up. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction. You better saddle up, saddle up. So listen up to a final verse on he who prevailed. Cause the devil, they say, can be found in the details. Jackson was a complicated man of his time. For evidence, return to the scene of the crime. Just consider Randy's thoughts on race and genetics. He clearly pushed the boundaries of morals and ethics. He built his own fortune on the back of the slave, and his record with the natives, it was more than depraved. But what can't be here tonight is the man was effective at serving up the interests of the rural collective. He redefined the limits of executive power and challenged institutions in the ivory tower. The history before us makes for good bars, and this battle with Clay, they left some deep scars. Eye for an eye, drive for a drive, left behind a legacy still alive. Henry Clay and Jackson into faction. You better saddle up. Second party system.